Hello, folks. We're looking at Hebrews chapter 13, and specifically one verse in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5. And it says, "Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, 'Never will I leave you.'" And so the point of this particular passage is very simple. Keep your lives free from the love of money. The Bible has a lot to say about money because God knows that money is one of those strong enticements that get to all of us, and we all desire money, or most of us desire money. We're really prompted by money. And we have to be careful, because what is the problem of money? Well, in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9, it says, people who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered. They have wandered from their faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. And that is the problem, is the wealth or money is not the problem in and of itself. The problem is that we want more. The problem is that it takes hold of us, and that it prompts us to wander away from faith, and it becomes a trap. That is the problem of money. Now, what is this trap? What is this wandering? Well, the wandering comes from this idea that we all want to be wealthier. We tend to focus so much on wealth. We look at the 1% of the world, the billionaires, the people who have it all, and they have the pleasure and they have the means to do all things. And as we go through life, we start to think about, if only I could get that kind of money, that kind of security. And many of us are driven that way. We believe our problems will be taken care of if only we had more money. And so we look and we admire and we dream of these billionaires and millionaires, and we long for that. So we look up at them, the 1%, the 5%. But Jesus didn't look up to any. There's no indication he gave any special regard for the wealthy. There's no indication that in his teachings he had us move towards money. And in fact, he, rather than looking up at the people above him financially, he looked outward. He looked at the grieving people. He looked at the poor. He looked at the disadvantaged and the marginalized, and he cared for them. And his devotion was not in gaining for himself. His devotion was for others, and that's what was most meaningful to him. Now, in the Bible, there is the famous story where Jesus says to the rich young ruler, "Go and sin no more." Or go and sell all your possessions and give them to the poor, and then come back and follow me. Well, what was the problem with the rich young ruler? And why did Jesus say to that particular man, go and sell everything? Is he telling you to sell everything? Well, the problem with the rich young ruler is he had a sense of self-assurance, and he had a sense of self-destiny. And when he goes to Jesus, he says, "Good teacher," and Jesus says, "Why do you call me good?" And then he says, the rich young ruler says, "What do I have to do to get into eternity? I want to assure that I'm going to heaven." And Jesus said, "Well, have you followed the commandments?" And he lists some commandments, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And the rich young ruler said, "Yeah," quite proudly. He says, "I've done all of those. I've maintained those commandments." Then Jesus hits him with number 10, "Thou shalt not covet." And he says it, the way he challenges him, he says, What about number 10? And when this rich young ruler realizes there's a problem, that's when Jesus says, go and sell everything. And he realized, the ruler, he realized, I can't do that. And he walked away sadly. Now, we don't know what ever happened to the rich young ruler. He's not mentioned again in the Bible. But we do know that it put him into a quandary. And what's the teaching there? Well, the teaching is we may feel good about maintaining the 10 Commandments, and with the commandments. We may think, I don't lie, and I take care of the Sabbath, and I take care of my mom and dad, and I'm concerned about them, and I'm a good man. But then if we cling on to our riches so much that we cannot share them, then Jesus would say to us, I believe, well, go and sell everything you have, and then come back, and I'll teach you. Then come back. But as long as you're holding on to everything, it's hard. There's a story, a description in Ezekiel chapter 16 that is very focuses us on what is important in life, and it's called the sin of Sodom. And it's chapter 16 of Ezekiel, and it says in verse 49, now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things before me. Therefore I did away with them, as you have seen. What was the problem? They were wealthy. They were spoiled. They were overfed. They became arrogant. And most important, that helped them, moved them to be unconcerned about the poor. They became concerned only about themselves. And this is not the heart of Jesus. In Jeremiah chapter 21, the Bible says this about God's heart. God defended the cause of the poor and the needy, and so all went well. Is that not what it means to know me, declares the Lord? What do you need to do to know God? You need to defend the cause of the poor and needy. This is what Jesus did. This was his calling. This is your calling, to help the poor. And that's like in the parable of the Matthew 25, the parable of the sheep and goats. There are two kinds of people. There are those who are sheep, and there are those who are goats. And the sheep are the ones who took care of others. They visited the poor. They visited the imprisoned. They helped, and they were always concerned about others. And Jesus said, when you did it for the least of these, you did it for me. The goats, on the other hand, they were destined for eternal destruction because they ignored the needs of the underprivileged. They ignored those needs. See, we look at a passage that's very favorable to us, and that's Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, saith the Lord, plans to prosper you, plans to give you hope and a future. Not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future. Well, that word prosper, some people think that word prosper means I'm going to get wealth. I'm going to do well financially. No. Jeremiah 29 answers what prosper means. It says, I want to give you a hope and a future. It's about hope. It's about a future. It's about heaven. It's about your eternal destiny. It's about your inheritance. It's not about earthly, worldly wealth. Now, wealth is not the problem. It's your attitude towards wealth. It's how tightly you have to grasp onto and hold onto your wealth. You are called to share. That's what's really important. is you are called to share. But we Christians, we people who call ourselves Christians, what is happening in our Christian world? What's happening is this. The wealthy Christian nations are the ones that are turning away refugees. They're the ones that are especially harsh to the homeless. And I look at not only Christian nations, Muslim nations. The wealthiest Muslim nations, hugely wealthy, Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and Dubai and the United Arab Emirates, massively wealthy, they don't have refugee camps. Now, the Muslim nations of Jordan and Lebanon and Turkey, they have huge refugee camps. But the richest, they turn their backs on, they ignore the poor refugees. In America, they ignore refugees. They build walls to keep them out. Is this Christian? And this is being led by the people who call themselves Christians. They are the ones who want to protect their own wealthy life. Where in the Bible does it say we, whoever we are, should be protecting our own wealth and our own status and ignore the poor? It doesn't say that. This is not the life of Jesus. And here in Canada, we have towns and villages of Aboriginals who cannot get clean water in Canada. We have homeless people who are struggling through life, many who are schizophrenic or who are disabled or who have just lost hope. Where would Jesus be? Would Jesus be coming to our churches where we have all the luxuries of life? No. This Christmas time is a time to be focusing on giving. On giving. The Bible calls us to be careful with our relationship with wealth. He has blessed us with wealth. He blessed a lot of people in the Bible with wealth. He blessed David and Solomon. He blessed Job. He blessed Abraham. There were many wealthy people in the Bible. Wealth is not the problem. The problem is mentioned in Hebrews 13:5. Keep your lives free from the love of money. Be content with what you have, but share. We as Christians should be the ones in our society who are leading the movement to help the poor. We Christians should be doing as Jesus would do regarding Christianity and regarding the poor. And I encourage you in that, in this season that is focused on giving. Thank you.